So look, I got a question for you. What do you do when you come to the conclusion that you no longer want to be in a long-term relationship with your 9 to 5 until age 65? That's what we're going to cover in this video. What's going on, y'all? Jarod Anderson here. Welcome to the Path to Financial Independence YouTube channel, where my mission, check the mission out, yo. Well, my mission is to help 9 to 5 freedom seekers take a greater level of ownership and control over their lives by transforming their relationship with their money and themselves. Come on now. So look, man, I got an exciting topic I want to share with you. And I'm going to just kind of paint the picture and tell you a story on how it all came about. So actually today, I was having a conversation with a coworker, and they were saying, we just talking about how Thanksgiving break was, and talked about what we did. And so she made the comment that when she came back to work, she could already sense tenseness in her body. Her shoulders started to get tight, and she just had a pain running in her shoulders. And she said she was fine the whole break, but as soon as it was time to come back to work, she started having all these sensations in her body. And I was just like, wow. And she knew it was simply coming back to work. Her body told her, it's just like, there's something about this we ain't quite feeling. And so we got to talking, and so she was just started to really share some things, just like for where she is in her life right now. She's in somewhere in her 30s, but she just kind of knew that I'm not trying to stay here for another 30 years. And in education, typically you got to put in at least 25 to 30 before you eligible to retire, and probably even longer before you can draw retirement. And so it really started an interesting conversation, because it's like she knew she wasn't in the place to just leave now, because she's like, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to just leave and not have anything in place. But it did make her think. It's just like, but what am I going to do long term? And what it drew to conjured up in my mind, it's kind of like being in a relationship. And somewhere along the line, you realize that this ain't somebody that I'm trying to be with long term. I mean, you have a good time, and you do great things together, you enjoy each other's company, but maybe they just might not be marriage material. And so what do you do when you get to that point where you kind of realize it's like, it's good now for the here and now, but I can't see myself going the distance with this person or individual. So I'm putting this in relationship terms so you can gain concept, but what about your 9 to 5? So especially for those of you, and this is who I'm really talking to, for those of you who in your mid-30s, early, maybe mid-40s, and you still got at least about 20 years to go before you're eligible to quote unquote retire. And like, I'm not trying to commit to this until I'm 65. What exactly do you do? And so I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts with you along those lines of exactly what do you do when, and I'm not saying quit your job. We're not talking about what do you do when you want to quit your job like tomorrow. We're not even talking about that, but more specifically, you just don't want to be committed to your 9 to 5 for another 20 to 30 years. So I'm going to share with you some tips or some things that you can do if that describes you, and make sure that you hit like and subscribe to my channel. Definitely appreciate the support. We are moving closer to our 100K subscribers. We knocking them off one at a time. So if you are what I would call a 9 to 5 freedom seeker, and you know that you're not trying to do that 9 to 5 thing for the next 20, 30, 40 years, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. All right, so let's get to the business at hand. So what do you do when you come to that conclusion that we ain't doing this? Number one, And this is usually the hardest step, and this came up in our conversation today, but you have to figure out exactly what is it do you want. That step right there, for whatever reason, seems to be the most difficult. Why? Because either we don't know what we want, or we don't really believe that we can have what we want. And so we never take time to clarify it. But before you set off on any journey, you have to figure out exactly where are we going? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? And so that's going to be your first step. Like, what do you want? Like, everybody may not necessarily want to leave a job. You just may you just may want to get to the position that I want to be able to leave if I want to. There's a big difference. Some people it's just like, I got to get out of here. I'm stressed out. I'm burnt out. I'm tired. I got to go. Some people it's just like, I just want to have the freedom to know that if I wanted to, I could pick up and leave tomorrow. I was talking to another coworker, and he's getting closer to that place now where, he's eligible to retire. And so I was asking him, like, do you think you would come back and continue to work? And he was like, you know what? I probably would, because I would have the comfort of knowing that I am in control. That if I woke up and they pissed me off, or they wanted me to do something that I didn't want to do, I could be like, okay, I'm not doing it. What you gonna do, fire me? Oh, I forgot I don't need to come here anyway. Peace. So that may be you. So that's step number one. You have to figure out exactly what it is that you want. And you gotta get that in as much detail as possible. Like, what do you want to do with your time? How much money do you want to have? How do you want to live? You got to figure all that stuff out. That's step number one. Step number two, very important step. You have to count the cost. And what I mean by count the cost, number one, you have to figure out, are you willing to become the type of person needed to be able to separate or sever from your 9 to 5? You're going to have to think differently. I mean, and I talk about this in a lot of my videos. We have all been programmed to think a certain way. We've been programmed, go to school, get your education, get your job, work that job for 30, 40 years and work to retirement. That's the programming. We've been programmed and conditioned to work for a paycheck, work for job security, work for consistent income. That's the programming. But listen, when you get to the place where you want to sever those ties from a 9 to 5, you have to carve out a whole different way of how you're going to make a living and how you're going to maintain and sustain your lifestyle. So count the cost. Are you willing to do that? If you had to become an entrepreneur, are you willing to do that? If you had to learn a new skill set, are you willing to do that? You have to count the cost. Count the cost in terms of the type of person you're going to need to become. Second part of counting the cost is, what sacrifice and changes are you going to be willing to make? So that's another big piece there too. You may have to make some lifestyle changes. You may have to downgrade a little bit before you can upgrade. You may have to, do something to bring in some extra income. I don't know, but what sacrifices and changes are you willing to make? Are you going to be like that person, by any means necessary, we're going to do what we need to do? Or are you going to be like, well, if I get a little bit too uncomfortable, I'm really not one for taking risks. So if it gets too risky, are you going to clock out? So you have to count the cost of the sacrifices you're willing to make. And then you have to count the financial costs. Like, you may need to have to totally overhaul how you relate to your money. And for those of you who don't know, I just got a certification in financial social work. And one of the main things that I help people do is change your relationship with your money and yourself so it can support the type of lifestyle that you desire. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So you have to consider the financial cost. All right, and then lastly, you have to get insight on how to get what you want, and then you have to commit to getting it no matter what the cost may be and no matter how long it may take. Let me say that again. You have to get insight. And I didn't say figure out. I said insight purposely because what you need is inside of you. You have to get insight. You have to get sight on the inside of you to figure out how to get what you want. And then you have to make a commitment once you kind of start getting, and it doesn't all come at one time. It's just like little pieces may come at a time. But once you start getting those insights, you have to decide, I'm committing to do whatever I need to do to walk this path. I don't care how long it takes. So just think about this. What if it took you 10, 15 years to figure out how to sever ties with your 9 to 5? And you might say, well, that's too long, Jarod. I don't want to wait that long. But look, what are you going to be doing in that time period anyway? You're still going to be working your job. So imagine even if you could just cut 5 years off from the time that you had to work. Not saying that you have to leave, but the time that you have to work. Think about what what a difference that would make to know 5 years ahead of schedule, you can walk away if you wanted to. So those are just some things to think about, but I'm so excited. I was so stirred up by it. I'm actually working on creating a course entitled the 9 to 5 Breakup Course. So I'm going to strategically show you some steps to take, how to position yourself to eventually break up with your 9 to 5. And trust me, I have experience in this area. I've already left one job. Probably the best and the worst decision that I made both at the same time. Best decision that I made because it just opened my mind up to a whole new way of living independent of a job. Probably the worst decision just because of the timing, and it's a lot of stuff that I didn't know at the time that really caused a lot of stress and worry and heartache and different things within me personally and my family unit. But you know, you live and you learn. But I'm going to make sure you don't make those same mistakes that I made. And I'm going to really put it all out there for you in this course, the 9 to 5 Breakup Course. So it's going to drop December the 18th. And I got so many things I'm working on. I'm starting my coaching and consulting company, Empower Coaching and Consulting. And the mission I told you, we're just going to empower 9 to 5 freedom seekers to take back ownership and control of your life. So stay tuned for that. A lot more coming where that's concerned. And just make sure that you stay plugged in. Make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. And I'll talk to you in the next video. Later.